Let me change the camera. Oh, we'll keep it as it is. To the YNBAB pod, man. It's just me here right now. We're hoping, Papa John, we're hoping maybe Black or Taff. We'll get into this, but we're here to talk about college football, man. College football. It's a great time to be in this college football space, man. Because, when you look at these smaller conferences, there's a lot of games to pay attention to with playoff implications. And that's what we're really here to discuss, man. Teams, game, playoff implications, stuff like that. What games you should watch if you're, and this is just like, you can be a casual fan. You can be looking for a storyline. You can just be like, oh, you know, it's earlier on a Saturday, or maybe it's a day throughout the week. Are there any games you should pay attention to? Yes. There are good games to watch, and we're gonna start actually at the ACC. We're gonna start in the ACC. So, if we look at the ACC, if we're not really talking, I don't really want to talk college football playoff implications. You know what I'm saying? I should probably lower these minutes. I know what I should do. It doesn't matter. College football playoff implications. I don't really discuss that too much because, as we know, I think every fan pretty much knows. Here's how it'll go, in my opinion. Um, how many SEC? I think Georgia will get it. Georgia or Tennessee will get a bid. Ohio State or Michigan will get a bid. Um, bless me. I think Clemson will win out and get a bid, and I think the last bid will go to SEC or big. It's gonna go to. It's either gonna they're gonna be two SEC teams or two Big Ten teams, unless if I don't unless if Michigan gets blown out, and I can see a Michigan loss to Ohio State really derailing them boys into it becoming one of those okay, we're just gonna put Ohio State in there. Do I think TCU should be in there? Hey, you know, honestly, I think it should be a two-team. I think it should just be a two-team BCS national championship. You get the best, you get the SEC champion and the Big Ten champion, and you just have them play because I don't think Clemson's got it. I don't think TCU's got it. But hey, it comes with good spectacle to be like, okay, they deserve to have a chance. And I agree. I think that they deserve to have a chance to play. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Um, so to circle back and give the final thoughts, it is what it is. I think it should be a two-team SEC Big Ten, but Clemson, I think ACC champ will get in there, Big Ten SEC champ will get in there, and we'll get an extra SEC or Big Ten school. I don't think Pac-12 or Big 12's got a chance to make the playoff. I think TCU's going to drop a game. I think it's inevitable. They're going to play a team they've already beaten in the championship, and that team is going to have the scouting report for them. I'm pretty sure it's inevitable. But let's come back to the ACC. Important games in the ACC. So if you look at the Atlantic, there's a lot of parity. I haven't really realized this in the ACC Atlantic Division. Clemson's got it, bro. Yeah, Clemson has Louisville and Miami. Clemson's really got to win out, but they can drop one of those games. It is what it is. Clemson's got to win out. They can drop one. It is what it is. Um, we've got Syracuse. Syracuse already lost to Clemson. So in the Atlantic Division, Clemson, there's not really game to watch. You can watch them play. They played Notre Dame this week. If Clemson really wants to play for the national championship, which I think they do, they feel like they deserve the chance. They got to win. They got to beat Notre Dame. They're going to be playing at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's been good. They've been bad. Notre Dame just doesn't have enough firepower to beat Clemson. That's how I feel. you know. But hey, if we continue, we can go to the Coastal. So the ACC championship has pretty much been decided, or not really. It's not really been decided because here's what: North Carolina has to play Wake Forest at Wake Forest, and they get NC State at home. I think North Carolina playing Wake Forest at Wake Forest is a huge game because Wake Forest, they're both North Carolina schools. Wake Forest is going to take that game so serious. Wake Forest is already in. They're already going to a bowl. They've got people on that team that that don't want to lose to North Carolina. They're going to take that game. There are a lot of people over there going to take that game very seriously. I think UNC can drop that game. Also, look at this. UNC's got to play NC State. NC State doesn't want to lose to North Carolina. It's a rivalry. So both of those games, hey, North Carolina can lose. If North Carolina drops those games, they will be okay because North Carolina beat Duke and they beat Miami. North Carolina literally has to beat. They literally got to beat Virginia and Georgia Tech. But that's the thing when we talk about games to watch. North Carolina, Georgia Tech on the back end may be a game to watch, especially if North Carolina loses to Wake Forest. Because if North Carolina gets 3 division losses, but then we're like, okay, we've got to hope that Duke loses to Wake Forest, which Duke probably could because Wake Forest is going to take that game serious. Then you got to hope that Miami loses a conference game, but Miami's got to play Florida State. So there's a path for Georgia Tech to win the ACC Coastal. There's a lot of playoff implications on, even you can say that all the Atlantic. If you're bored this weekend, watch the ACC Coastal games. Watch even Pittsburgh. High key has a chance. They've got to win out. They've got to beat Syracuse, Pitt. They got to beat Syracuse, Virginia, Duke, and Miami. Like, they high key have a chance because we can have a 3-loss Coastal Division champion. Because UNC, they can lose to Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, and NC State. And then, hey, Duke can lose to Wake Forest. Miami can lose to Florida State. Hey, man. So you got to pay close attention to this Coastal Division. So, just that's some games to look out for. So if I was going to give any suggestions for ACC specifically, definitely for the Atlantic Division, you can watch Syracuse Pitt because for Pittsburgh, it'll be a home game for Pittsburgh. If I'm Pittsburgh coaching staff, I've let the players know, hey, if we want to make these playoffs, we've got to win out. We've got to win out, and everything else will handle itself. If I'm a Pitt coaching staff, I go to my team and I say that. And Pitt, they can control their own destiny. So I'd watch Syracuse, Pitt, Clemson, Notre Dame. If you care about the playoff, watch Clemson, Notre Dame. Definitely gotta watch UNC, Virginia, because if UNC loses to Virginia, hey, and Virginia's at home. Virginia is 3-5. Look at Virginia's schedule. Virginia is 3-5. They've got They've got to win. They have 4 games left on their schedule, and they've got to win 3 of them to make a bowl game. They've got Pitt on their schedule. They've got Virginia Tech, and they've got Coastal Carolina and North Carolina. If I'm Virginia, we know it's going to be a comp game against Pittsburgh. We know it's going to be a comp game against Virginia Tech, and we think we can beat them. Coastal Carolina will be a slight step down in competition. We think we can beat them, but why not get it started against North Carolina? Why not win that game? That's going to be a good game. And the game is at Virginia. If I'm Virginia coaching staff, because you've got seniors on Virginia, you've got people on Virginia. This could be their last season playing college football, their last season playing football, period. They've got to come into this game with a level of focus. And you're gonna have some people over there that may be like, oh, it doesn't matter if we lose this because we're gonna play Pittsburgh and Coastal Carolina and Virginia Tech. But beating North Carolina would be huge. Beating North Carolina would be huge. There's a lot of good games to watch, especially if you care about, just college football as a holistic aspect. We look at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, they've only got 3 more conference games left. They got Virginia Tech. You've got to watch. So basically, what I'm telling you is, you've got to watch a lot of these games. And I'm going to go back through these ACC games because I can't put anything on the screen right now. I'm going to have to work with Black and get some editing done. But if we were gonna have to go team by team and give my analysis because this has turned into something more than I expected. Virginia, you've got to watch Virginia North Carolina. That's got to be a game. It's Saturday at 11 a.m. ACC Network. You got to watch Virginia North Carolina. That'll be a good game. Virginia Tech, I say you can tune in. I would say you can tune in because Virginia Tech knows. Like, Virginia Tech is coming off a couple of tough losses. They lose to Pittsburgh. And they got blown out by Pittsburgh. But they lost to Miami by 6 points 2 weeks ago. And then they lose to NC State by 1 point. And they were up 12 points in the fourth quarter and lose. So you gotta take another look. And then so Georgia Tech has to play Virginia. And Virginia Tech gets Georgia Tech, Duke, Liberty, and Virginia. If Virginia Tech wants to make a bowl game, give everybody a chance to play one more game, they gotta win out. That's why that Virginia Tech Georgia Tech game's is gonna be good. And you look at Georgia Tech. If Georgia Tech wants to play for the ACC championship game, they've got to beat Virginia Tech. That'll be a good game. Pittsburgh, they play Syracuse. Pittsburgh is at home. Syracuse has been on a little bit of a losing streak. Pittsburgh has a chance to beat Syracuse. That'll be a big game for Pittsburgh because if they want to play for the ACC championship, they gotta win. Take a look at Miami. Miami's got Florida State. Miami is a head case. Miami's got Florida State, Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Pitt on the schedule. They've got Florida State and Clemson. I think they're a 4-loss team. I think they are, but hey, Miami is 4-4. But Miami, if I'm Miami, I'm probably looking like, okay, we're gonna beat Georgia Tech and Miami, and we're gonna try to beat Clemson because they're the best team in the conference, and that would be nice to ruin their season. So they're probably gonna take those 3 serious. Florida State, Miami, that is a rivalry game, so there may be a little bit of urgency, but the next game, my bad about that. The next team is Duke. Duke Duke is thinking we gotta win out, gotta watch the Duke game. So hey, Duke plays on. So pretty much every team in the ACC Coastal, you gotta watch those games. And ACC Atlantic, just watch the Clemson game really. Otherwise, We're going to move on from the ACC to the American. Now, if we look at the American, the top two teams play for the American Athletic Conference Championship. Right now, Tulane is top of the division at 4-0. UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston are tied for second at 3-1. ECU's at 3-2. Navy 3-3. SMU is 2-2. Teams with 3 losses don't have a chance. You got Tulane. Tulane still has to play UCF and Cincinnati. So, hey, Tulane can drop both of those. So the American division, you've got to pay attention. Now we're gonna start with Navy. Navy is 3-3. Navy only sees Cincinnati and UCF. If Navy were to beat Cincinnati and UCF, that's not enough losses for them. So Navy is pretty much out of contention. You look at SMU. SMU only has to play Houston and Tulane. If SMU ends the season with 2 losses in the 6-2, 6-2, but they would have beaten Houston and Tulane. But if SMU lost, did they lose to Cincinnati? Yeah. No, SMU is out of contention. So you can't have more than 2 losses in the division. ECU is out of contention. Yeah, ECU is out of contention. Well, no, ECU, Cincinnati, and Houston. See, it's interesting. Let's talk about it. So, SMU is 2-2. If SMU beats Houston, if they win out, so that means they'll beat Houston and Tulane. Only Houston would be affected. So we're saying in hypothetical world, okay, SMU would end the season 6-2. Tulane would be 1 loss. And UCF, do they play Cincinnati? UCF and Cincinnati have already played, so there's no guarantee that either of those teams would lose again. So they don't really, SMU doesn't control their own destiny. But I would say, hey, watch the SMU Houston game this Saturday. It's probably going to be a pretty decent game. SMU, if I'm SMU coaching staff, I'm not really looking at that game saying we need to win because we want to play for a championship. I'm saying we need to win because we want to make a bowl game. Let's go to Navy. Navy is out of contention. We'll get back to them. ECU. So here's the interesting thing. East Carolina, they have beaten UCF, and they have Cincinnati and Houston on their schedule. So ECU can beat, if ECU beats Cincinnati and Houston, and they've already beaten UCF, they just have to hope for a UCF loss, and they will have tiebreaker for second. So it's similar to SMU, because SMU, so here's what SMU, they can beat Houston. Well, no, Tulane has too many wins, so yeah. But ECU really controls pretty much their own destiny. And UCF has to play Tulane. That's their last comp game. So you've got to watch ECU. ECU's got Cincinnati, Houston, and Temple. They don't play till next weekend. But hey, you've got to watch East Carolina because, man, and East Carolina could be better off in the division, but they lost a pivotal game to Navy in double OT earlier in the year. And they beat Memphis in 4 OTs, and they beat UCF. But if they would have beaten Navy, they would be 4-1 in the division right now, and they would really control their destiny a little better than hoping for a UCF loss. You know. So you gotta watch East Carolina. You gotta watch that game. Houston, now we're getting into the 3-1 teams, which are UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. Houston lucked out. Houston doesn't play UCF or Cincinnati. They only played Tulane and they lost to Tulane in OT. Wow, so they're probably kicking themselves, but they could get a rematch. They've just got to win out. They've got SMU, Houston, East Carolina. I mean, they've got SMU, Temple, East Carolina, and Tulsa. They've just got to win out. If you're Houston, hey, if you're Houston, hey, you just got to win out. That's all you got to do. If you're Houston, you just got to win out. And but do they should hold the tiebreaker. They didn't play Cincinnati or UCF. I don't know how that tiebreaker will work itself out, but right now it has them below Cincinnati and UCF, so they don't really control their own destiny. But that's interesting. They're probably hoping for a Cincinnati and UCF loss. Yeah, because right now they're third. So Houston, I don't think Houston really has a shot in the championship. They've got to hope for teams to lose. So it's too soon to tell. But if you want, you can watch the Houston SMU game because they can't lose if they want to compete. They can't lose. The real game is going to be Houston, East Carolina. That will be American Conference implications. We got Cincinnati. Cincinnati gets to play Tulane. They get the privilege of playing Tulane. If Cincinnati beats Tulane, Tulane joins the one loss of the division. Probably a Cincinnati UCF rematch. But Cincinnati doesn't play UCF for a little minute. Hey, Cincinnati plays Navy next week. They don't play Tulane till the end of the year, so there's going to be a lot of time before they play each other. You've got UCF. UCF, they play Tulane. Okay. Cincinnati and UCF both play Tulane, but UCF doesn't play Tulane until not this weekend, but next weekend. UCF has Memphis. But as I said in the American Division, games to watch this week, just you can watch the teams at the top. I wouldn't say any urgent games really as of right now. But if you look at Tulane, they've got Tulsa, which will be, should be a good game for them to win, get stuff together. Then they get UCF. They've got to win that one. And if they lose to UCF, then Tulane Cincinnati is going to be the game of the year. Because if UCF beats Tulane, Tulane will join the one-loss boys. And then Cincinnati will get them at the back end of the year. And UCF doesn't have to play anybody but Tulane. And Houston doesn't get to play anybody. And ECU doesn't even play. ECU only plays Cincinnati and Houston, so Tulane's got to beat UCF. But UCF, I'm looking at that game. But let's spin back. Let's take some steps back. We moved a little too fast. Let's look at Temple. If you want to watch a game, Temple South Florida is a game to watch. Temple is 2-6 right now. They got to win out to make the playoff. I mean, to make a bowl game. Temple is 2-6 right now. They've got South Florida at home. Then they've got Houston, Cincinnati, and East Carolina. That is a terrible schedule for them because they're playing all teams probably going to be fighting for a championship spot. But hey, if you're on that team, you're probably like, hey, I want to compete to try to win. You're probably playing to win, stuff like that. You got seniors on that team. You got people that don't want this to be their last season of football. So that Temple South Florida game is very important. And if they don't win that game, then it's going to just be very sad, when they play Houston. Because then they're like, everybody knows their season is over. And it's like inevitable. But if they win, hey, it's different. We'll continue on to Tulsa. Tulsa's 3-5, but so Tulsa They got Memphis and South Florida. Those will be games they can compete in. But they've got Tulane and they've got Houston. That's tough. And every week we'll check back in on these teams. But they've got Tulane and Houston. Two teams competing for the AAC championship. That's not easy. They've got Tulane this week, but Tulsa's at home, and Tulsa's 3-5. They got to win 3 games. 3 out of these next 4 games they've got to win. That is very tough for Tulsa. But that's why this Tulane-Tulsa game is going to have major implications. Because Tulsa's at home. Tulane is coming to them. They're going to be prepared. They're going to be ready to play Tulane. They're going to be more than ready. Memphis is 4-4, but Memphis has North Alabama. They've got some bums on the schedule. They have North Alabama. That should be a win. Then they have Tulsa and SMU. So, hey, for all I know, Memphis, they're going to be in a bowl game. You've got SMU. They've got South Florida, who's really bad this year. Oh, SMU Memphis? Maybe a big game? Maybe, maybe not. Let's look. Memphis has UC. No, it won't be. There's a small chance it is. A big game is there's a small chance. The big game. Okay, let me explain. I don't know. The big game may be Memphis Tulsa because Tulsa, they've got to win 3 out of their next 4 games. They may lose to Tulane, and then they play Memphis next week. And Tulsa will be in a must-win game against Memphis. But Memphis may lose to UCF. And then they'll be playing Tulsa. And Memphis will have 3 games left and they have to win 2 against, they play Tulsa, North Alabama, and SMU. They've got to win 2. So they're like, oh, Tulsa at home, that's a game we got to win, So that may be a big game for both teams, but I doubt it. I think Memphis is probably like, eh. But that's when we come to SMU, because SMU has Houston and Tulane. Now they play Houston this weekend. SMU Houston, big game. SMU is 4-4. They've got 4 games left, and they've got to win 2 of them. This is a big game. This is a big game for SMU, because they've got South Florida mid. They can beat South Florida. They got Memphis at the end of the year at home. That's a game they can win, but they've got Houston coming to town. They can beat Houston. That's gonna be a good game because if SMU beats Houston, they practically punched their ticket for a bowl game, which is pretty nice, which is pretty sweet. Other than that, that's all. So, to give a quick summary before we move on from the American Athletic Conference. Tulane, hey, every team at the top from SMU, ECU, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and Tulane, they're all competing for the championship. None of them play each other this week. We're just going to have to look. So Tulane has Tulsa, South Florida Temple, UCF Memphis, Navy Cincinnati, Houston SMU. Biggest game is Houston SMU. That's on NFL Network, which is very tough. But that's the biggest game. And then Tulsa Tulane will be pretty big. Other than that, not really. UCF Memphis maybe, because Memphis is 4-4, but Memphis still has Tulsa, North Alabama, and SMU on their schedule. But hey, other than that, it's really week 11 is when questions will start to be answered, because East Carolina will play Cincinnati and UCF will play Tulane. So after this week, we'll circle back to this conference. But the big game lies for Temple. Temple plays South Florida. Temple's got to win if they want to make the playoffs. And you got Tulsa. We'll see. Hopefully Tulsa can beat Tulane. And Navy is 3-5. Navy can make the playoffs. They have 4 games left. They got to win 3. Cincinnati, they're probably not winning that game. So they have Notre Dame, UCF, they're probably not winning that game in Army. They've got to update. They've got like 3 back-to-back difficult games, and they got to win 2 of them. They've got to win at least 2. So Navy's probably going to take it personal because a lot of those people don't want this to be their last football game over there at Naval Academy, man. So they're going to be taking this serious against Cincinnati. But Navy's got to go to Cincinnati. That's not good. But then Notre Dame will come to Navy, so Navy, they'll be fighting hard. Even if they're 3-6, they'll know they can still make the bowl game. But then they got to go to UCF. And UCF is probably going to be competing for a chance to play in the championship, so that'll be a comp game. Otherwise, though, not much to watch this week. Stuff to watch out for down the line. So if you're free and you're like, oh, let me go see what's going on with the American. You know, if you've got cable at 6 p.m., tune in to Houston SMU. Or if you got ESPN Plus at 1 p.m., you can tune in. You know, all these games matter, but, you know, we've discussed quickly, you know, the importance of some of these games. Let's go to Big 12. Looking at the Big 12, we pretty much all know what's going on. TCU is running away with it right now, but TCU still has 4 more conference games left. It's too soon to tell. That's exactly what I should have said for the American. It's too soon to tell. Because, you know, competing for the championship is interesting because I think Texas has 2 losses. If Texas beat Kansas State, you know, I don't know how tiebreakers will go. But Texas has Kansas State and TCU and Baylor. You know, Texas will just only not have the tiebreaker over Oklahoma State. And Texas lost to Oklahoma State, so, you know, Texas is not really controlling their own destiny here. They got to hope for TCU to lose another game or for Oklahoma State to lose. You got Baylor. Hey, Baylor's got TCU and Kansas State. So Baylor, Kansas State will be a pretty big game. Does Baylor have the tiebreaker over Oak State? They don't. So Oklahoma State is really like controlling the 3-2 because Oklahoma State beat Baylor and Texas. Yep. So Oklahoma State, they have Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma, West Virginia. They probably won't lose any of those games. I used to do the sports bets, and I would bet on Kansas, and Kansas has let me down consistently. They didn't against Duke. Otherwise, they sure have. It has let me down. Oklahoma State controls the 3-2s. Oklahoma State got blown out by Kansas State 48-0 though. But so that's just interesting. So let's explain it. Kansas State has to play Texas and Baylor. Texas and Baylor are both 3-2. If Texas or Baylor beats Kansas State, they'll have the tiebreaker over Kansas State, and they'll move into number 3 because Oklahoma State will move to number 2. So that's interesting. Because Oklahoma State, you know, they play Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma, and West Virginia, and none of those teams are competing for the Big 12 championship. They're both pretty well set on college football, bowl games. Most of those teams only need one or 2 wins, so Big 12 is kind of already sorted itself out. So a couple ways, as long as a team doesn't like it implode on itself, TCU, they should be fine. If they lose to Texas and Baylor, if TCU loses twice, it'll hurt because they'll lose the tiebreaker. If they lose once, it doesn't matter. Oklahoma State, Kansas State just has to win out, and they play Texas this weekend. If I'm Texas, I'm not even thinking I have a chance to win the Big 12. I'm just trying to, compete. You try to win every game, but beating Kansas State definitely does help if you are Texas, because if Kansas State gets knocked out, then Texas plays Baylor at the end of the year. That Texas Baylor could end up being a big game. Oh, this game's over. Let me sim this to end. Well, who's got ball? Let's look. Let's see if Dallas scores here. But yeah, all in all, nothing really to watch. You can watch Kansas. So yeah. Oh, you should hit that. Oh, that's tough. I should see. I have it on. Oh, you know what? That's what it is. Cause it's at 30, but shot timing impact is at 0. Hmm. We're not gonna count this one. We're not gonna count this game. John, why are we? What the heck? I just saw Dallas win. Is it? What the heck? That's on me. I need to put it at Hall of Fame. I thought the CPU would miss on Hall of Fame, but I guess it ups their stats. It is what it is. Y'all don't care. It's just something to watch. Let me get through this tip off. Alright, so come back, yeah. So Texas Baylor will be a good game at the end of the year. Oklahoma State got Kansas. You can watch Oklahoma State Kansas if you feel like it. Why is the camera like this? You can watch Oklahoma State Kansas if you feel like it, but Oklahoma State destiny is not in their hands. Kansas State's got Texas. There's just so many moving parts that it's interesting. Watch this game. If this game is like less than if each team gets less than 30 points, then okay, so that's more like it. But yeah, all in all, Big 12, you can watch. Pay attention to Baylor, Texas, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. You just pay attention to the top teams. Texas plays TCU. TCU probably will win, but you can just peek because TCU can drop only one game. Baylor's got Oklahoma. Baylor has to go to Oklahoma. You can peek. You know what I'm saying? Let's look at the other teams. Iowa State. Iowa State's probably not making a bowl game. They've got to win 3 out of their next 4. They've got West Virginia and Texas Tech, 2 winnable games. But they've got to play Oklahoma State and TCU. Those are 2 tough games. They can definitely beat Oklahoma State, so if I'm Iowa, but they play Oklahoma State and TCU away games. So next week, definitely to watch. Iowa State play Oklahoma State. That'll be a good one. West Virginia. West Virginia, they've got to win 3 out of their next 4 games. They play Iowa State, but other than that, they got Oklahoma, Kansas State, Oak State. So, you just gotta wait. There's no cupcakes on the schedule for West Virginia or Iowa State. Texas Tech, Texas Tech, they gotta play Iowa State and Kansas. So Texas Tech is looking like they got 2 wins on their schedule. Texas Tech, Kansas next week may be a big game. Kansas is 5-3. Kansas has to play Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. So if Kansas loses to Oklahoma State this weekend, Texas Tech is going to be a big game. Because that will really impact who's going to, if Kansas is going to make a bowl game. Kansas is 5-3 right now. They need one more win. And if they can't get that victory against Texas Tech, then they've got to play Texas and Kansas State, and that definitely does not look too good for Kansas. But otherwise, the general consensus is don't there's some, at least the more that's the general consensus. The stakes. If you watch, you can watch one of those games and you'll understand the stakes of what's going on. Let's look at Big Ten. So Big Ten, we know. Penn State is pretty much out of contention. Unless if Ohio State and Michigan crumble, and we don't go into that far of hypothetical land. We'll be back to see playoff I mean, bowl game implications. If you go to the Big Ten West, hey, what do I have to say? It's anybody's game pretty much. Illinois, they gotta play Michigan State. Purdue, Michigan. Hey, they're probably gonna lose to Michigan. That'll be 2 losses for them. They'll be tied with Purdue, and then they play Purdue next week. That'll be a big game. Purdue. Who does Purdue have on their schedule? Iowa, Indiana, Northwestern. So Purdue's got some games. Hey, Big Ten West full of frauds and chumps. Iowa. If Iowa beats Purdue, there's a world where they make it, and it's not likely because Illinois probably is only going to lose to. And if Purdue loses to Iowa, they know they're not making it in. So who knows what their level of focus will be for Illinois. At Illinois, probably they'll try to win, but who knows what their level of focus will be. So this is for the Big Ten West. Too soon to tell. General consensus: hey man, it's too soon to tell. What else can we say? It's too soon to tell. We don't know how Illinois will do this week. Illinois can drop a game and then they play Purdue. Doesn't really matter if they win or lose. Purdue Iowa's a big game because if Purdue beats Iowa, then they've set themselves up pretty well for next week. That Purdue Illinois game to mean a lot. Minnesota's out of contention. Yeah, Minnesota's out of contention. Wisconsin is out of contention. Nebraska's out of contention. Unless if Illinois and Purdue crumble. But let's look at bowl game implications. So Rutgers. Ooh, Rutgers. Look at Rutgers or whatever, man. Bowl game implications. Rutgers is 4-4. They've got to play Michigan and Penn State. 2 probably losses. But they get to play Michigan State and Maryland. Now, I don't want to be too disrespectful to Maryland because Maryland is 6-2. But have they only lost to Michigan and Ohio State? Maryland lost to Michigan and Purdue. So Maryland will probably have a couple more losses. But at the same time, Maryland is not no slouch. But Rutgers, they know they're probably not beating Michigan. They know they're probably not beating Penn State, even though it's doable. So next week they play Michigan State, must-win game on the road. Then they play Maryland, must-win game on the road. That'll be interesting. Let's take a look at Indiana. Indiana's gotta win 3 of their next 4. But they've gotta play Penn State and Ohio State. It's not looking good for Indiana. But other than that, if they win one of those 2, they got Michigan State and Purdue. So they could make a bowl game, but they've gotta beat Penn State or Ohio State. It's not looking good. It's looking like they should have beaten Cincinnati or Nebraska when they had the chance. Let's look at Michigan State. Michigan State, though, can make a bowl game. After that crappy start, they can make a bowl game. Alright, let me tell you how they make a bowl game. They've got Illinois. I don't know. I don't believe in Illinois. I think everybody can drop a game. They got Rutgers. They've got Indiana. Those are 3 wins they can get. If they beat Johnson, here's what I say. If they beat Illinois, bro, they have a good shot. Because then they've got Rutgers and Indiana at home. They'll pretty much make a bowl game at 6-6. So this game, Michigan State, Illinois, is a big game. If you're free at 2:30, go to the Big Ten Network, watch Michigan State, Illinois. That'll be a good game. Let's go to the Big Ten West. Iowa and if you're in the Big Ten West, Iowa's 4-4, Wisconsin's 4-4. It's the Wild West. We're not, you're not in, oh, we gotta win or we're done mode. It doesn't matter. Nebraska's 3-5. Okay. Nebraska's got to play Michigan now. So Nebraska, Minnesota at Nebraska this weekend is a big game. If Nebraska loses this game, they've got to beat Michigan to make a bowl game, which is unlikely. So Nebraska, Minnesota, this game is big. 11 a.m. ESPN2. Minnesota is favored by 11. Other than that, though, that's pretty much it for me, man, for the Big Ten. So a quick overview. Michigan, Ohio State, they played the last game of the season, right? Yeah. That's what everybody's waiting for. Even if one of those teams loses a conference game, it doesn't matter because they'll play each other, and if they beat the other one, they got the tiebreaker. so it doesn't really matter. As in Big Ten West, it doesn't really matter, because it's too soon to tell. There's 4 2-3 teams. Purdue's 3-2. Illinois is 4-1. And Illinois has another loss coming when they play Michigan, so we'll see. Now let's go to Conference USA. Now, is there a Conference USA championship game? Man, Denver's handling business. Yes, there is. So, the top 2 teams play in the Conference USA championship game. A lot of teams have a chance. North Texas is 4-1, but they got FIU, UAB, and Rice. Rice is 2-2, and FAU is 3-2. Okay, let's look at UT. Okay, so here's what's going on with Conference USA because I can't show it on the screen. Y'all are blessed to watch this basketball game. Let's see what they do. A corner theater should be in there. Tough. You gotta hit that. You shot that? He kicked that out? Screen and roll, no pick and fade. You shot. Denver's got it. Let me simcast. Of course Dallas wins. No, of course. And then Luka gets 30. John, how should you feel? I'm a fourth win Denver a game, I think. It doesn't really matter. They've got to win a game in this. I'm a fourth win Denver a game. Because Denver had them boys beat and I simmed it. Because they were up 10. What's the next game? Kings Jazz. Okay, so what was I thinking? Okay, so let's look at the 2-2 teams. So UTSA is 4-0, North Texas is 4-1, and then you have Western Kentucky's 3-2, FAU's 3-2, FIU's 2-2, and Rice is 2-2. UAB, every team with 3 losses has no shot. UTSA, they've got UAB. UTSA is pretty good. They've got UAB. UAB is 2-3. They're not playing for. Yeah, UTSA, they're fine. UTSA just can't lose 2 of their next 4. North Texas has 3 games left. They gotta win out. So let's look at a team that's trying to find their way in like Rice. Rice plays North Texas. If Rice wins out, they'll make the championship. But Rice just lost to UTEP. Rice has been struggling this year, honestly. I'll tell y'all their record. They beat Louisiana by 12, and they won the fourth quarter by 7. So at one point the score was 19. Rice was down at half and pulled it out against University of Louisiana. Then they lose to Houston by 7 in a game that they were tied in the fourth. And then they beat UAB by 4 in a game that they were down by 3 at the beginning of the fourth. Then they lose to FAU by 3 in a game they were up 14-0 and lose 14-17 to FAU. That is embarrassing. That is the definition of went outside, man. Is he hitting that? It's tough, man. Come on, Conley. They got us in courtside seats? Hey! They got us sitting courtside. Yep, and then Rice beats Louisiana Tech. I remember, I think I watched that game. Yeah, I watched that game. Rice beat Louisiana Tech. But then Rice just got blown out by Charlotte, and Charlotte was the bottom of the conference. And now Rice got UTEP at home. We'll see, because UTEP is out of playoff contention. But Rice has to win out, because Rice has... Oh my goodness. Because Rice will play North Texas. If they win... No. Wait. Rice lost to FAU. FAU would hold the tiebreak. See, Conference USA, pretty much, is too early to tell. Too many moving parts. Rice, FIU, FAU, Western Kentucky, North Texas, and UTSA are all still competing. But Rice can win out. They'll knock out Western Kentucky. And that's it. Because they lost to FAU. And FAU would hold the tiebreaker. And it would be FAU UTSA. So Rice doesn't control their stuff. FIU lost to UTSA and Western Kentucky. FIU doesn't control their destiny. FAU... UTEP? Where's UTEP? Okay. FAU already played North Texas though. So they don't really control anything. So like a lot of this, Western Kentucky, yeah, they don't control anything either. So a lot of this is going to boil down to, is North Texas going to drop a game? So if there's any game for you to watch from Conference USA, you can watch pretty much all the teams that are 2-loss. So Rice, FIU, FAU, Western Kentucky, North Texas, and UTSA. You can watch all of their games, which is every game except for MTSU, Louisiana Tech. So on Thursday, if you're free, on CBSSN, that's tomorrow. Tomorrow at 6, hey, Rice UTEP. Rice competing for a chance to play for the championship. They got to win that game. But otherwise, just see if North Texas will win. Now let's look at the win-loss as a conglomerate. A lot of these teams are 4-win teams. It's too soon to tell. 4-win. A lot of these teams have 4 games left. It's too soon to tell, and so there's no big games to really watch other than just watch North Texas. The Independent does not matter. It does not matter. We can come here to look at the schedule. Notre Dame has Clemson. They play Navy and Boston College. They got to win one of those games. BYU is 4-5. We know, bro. We know that. We know what these teams need. BYU is 4-5. They're not in a win-out scenario. They play Boise State, Utah Tech, and Stanford. They're gonna beat Utah Tech. If they beat Boise State, it's a lot less stressful to make the playoffs. I mean, a bowl game. Because then they gotta beat Stanford to make a bowl game. Let's look at Connecticut. You got Connecticut. They play UMass. UMass is 1-7. Then they're gonna have to play Army. They play Liberty. They're probably not beating Liberty. Hey, so if I'm UConn, hey, we'll beat UMass at home. That'll be a good game. Then we got to play at Army at the end of the year. That's gonna be a game we gotta win. So it's too soon to tell. New Mexico State. They play Lamar. They play Missouri. They play Liberty. That's tough for them. They're probably not beating Missouri or Liberty. You can watch. I wouldn't even. That the Lamar game's not even on TV. They don't play Lamar for a couple weeks, or so maybe on TV. So I'm gonna just say all that to say, you can probably watch when they play Missouri on the week of the 19th. You look at Army. Army has 1, 2, 3, 4. Army has 5 games left, so Army has a lot of time to win 3 of these 5 games. So Army's got a pretty good shot. I'm not gonna tell you the teams, but the conference I've been wanting to talk about, the MAC, which started it all. The MAC conference, the best conference to watch. If you're bored, you're like, I like football, I like storylines. What are the storylines coming into the games? The MAC conference is where it's at, man. So we've got the MAC East and MAC West. Here's the deal. Cut you up to speed. Ohio used to be 4-0 in the MAC East. At one point, Toledo was 4-0 in the MAC East. Well, at one point, they were both 3-0, 4-0. Does not matter. Ohio beat the best team in the MAC East. I mean, Buffalo, let me backtrack. Buffalo was the best team in the MAC East, and they played Toledo in the best team in the MAC West. And Buffalo beat Toledo. Came back and beat them. Great game. Buffalo was down. I remember watching this game. Buffalo was down 27-10 at the end of the third, and Buffalo scored 24 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to win 34-27. But Buffalo played Ohio yesterday at Ohio, and Buffalo was 4-0 and Ohio was 3-1. And hey, it did not matter that Ohio had a loss. Ohio lost to Kent State. But it did not matter because Ohio beat Buffalo yesterday 45-24. And now Ohio is number 1 in the division. Number 1 in the division. And guess what? No matter what happens, Buffalo can't do anything. Buffalo is helpless. Buffalo is helpless in this scenario. And that is the nightmare of it. So now in the MAC East, there's 3 teams with 1 loss. Ohio, Buffalo, and Bowling Green. Ohio's beaten Buffalo. Buffalo's beaten Bowling Green. And Ohio plays Bowling Green at the end of the season. John, what does all this mean? What are the implications? Alright. Ohio's schedule for the rest of the year. They play Miami, Ohio. At Miami, Ohio. Now, 2 Ohio teams playing. And Miami, Ohio is the home team. Miami, Ohio is taking that game serious. There's people on that team that don't want to lose to Ohio. There's people on that team that, they weren't recruited by Ohio. People that have grown up in nearby area, they want to beat Ohio. Ohio's wants to win that game because they want to play for the MAC championship. Miami, Ohio would love to ruin their season. There's not a world where Miami, Ohio plays for the championship. But hey, oh my goodness. But there is a way Kent State doesn't really have a way. There is a way Kent State plays for the championship. Well, let me tell y'all this, bro. I just looked and saw this. Kent State is 2-3 in the MAC East. No, there isn't a way. Because if they beat Buffalo, because Kent State plays Bowling Green and Buffalo, but if they beat both of those teams, there'll just be 2 losses. But hey, Ohio's got to play Miami, Ohio, Ball State, and Bowling Green. If Ohio loses to Bowling Green, tiebreaker will. I don't know who will get the tiebreaker. No, no. If Ohio loses to Bowling Green, tiebreaker will go to Buffalo. Buffalo will play for the championship. So that puts Bowling Green in a conundrum. But the thing is, Bowling Green is playing right now and they're beating Western Michigan. And you know, Bowling Green plays Ohio end of the year at 6 p.m. Buffalo's last game, they don't know when they're going to play that game. But hey, Buffalo's hopes lie in Bowling Green beating Ohio. And if Buffalo drops a game, then Bowling Green moves up to be a championship contending team in the MAC East. So I'm sorry I couldn't say soon enough which games to watch, because most of them will be played by today. But next week, you know, they play on Tuesday and Wednesdays. Buffalo, Central Michigan, Ohio versus Miami of Ohio, and Kent State, Bowling Green. Those are the games so far I think y'all should watch, man. Tuesday and Wednesdays, that's when they play. Great games to tune into. You got Toledo. Toledo plays Ball State next week. You got to tune in that one. The winner of Toledo Ball State is likely to play for the MAC West Championship. So MAC West, let me tell you. Eastern Michigan, they're not playing for, okay. So MAC West, you've got Toledo, Ball State, and Western Michigan. Toledo lost to Buffalo, a MAC East team. Ball State's lost 2 games, Western Michigan's lost 2 games, but they haven't lost to Toledo. They haven't played Toledo. Why do I say that? Because tiebreaker. If Ball State beats Toledo, they'll have tiebreaker. Western Michigan beats Toledo, they'll have tiebreaker. And Western Michigan beat Ball State second week of the season, 37-30. That is beyond tough. Before your team was fully fleshed out. But Western Michigan's losing to Bowling Green. It's looking like they will lose to Bowling Green. Western Michigan loses to Bowling Green, then the only game that matters is Ball State versus Toledo. Pretty much. Because then Ball State, Toledo will pretty much determine, well, Ball State's got to play Ohio. And Ohio is 4-1 in the MAC East. And then if Ball State loses to Ohio, they'll be 3-3, or they'll be 4-3 in the division, and then Toledo will hop back into number 1. But then Toledo's got to play Bowling Green, still got to play Western Michigan. The MAC is tough. There's so many teams that can still compete for the ship in the MAC, which makes it so good. But you know, all in all, just next week, pretty much every MAC game matters. Well, not everyone. Ohio, Miami, Ohio, Toledo, Ball State, Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, Buffalo, Central Michigan. So every game except for the first one, Eastern Michigan, Akron, the only one that won't be. Well, the only Tuesday game that's not televised. That's the only one that won't matter. So it probably will be on ESPN Plus, but hey, let's look at bowl progression. You look at Bowling Green State, they're gonna beat Western Michigan. They'll be fine. Let's look at Miami, Ohio. They're 4-5. There's some scrubs. Okay, let's look at Kent State. Next week, they play Bowling Green. The rest of their schedule is Bowling Green, Eastern Mich, and Buffalo. Kent State, who gave Georgia a decent game, they've got 3 games left on their schedule. They've got to win out. Kent State's got 3 games. Only one of them's a home game. They've got to win out to make a bowl game. Season's on the line. They've had a great season. They've got to win out, man. Western Michigan's looking like they're gonna lose. So then they'll play Northern Illinois. Their big game is gonna be Toledo. If they lose to Northern Illinois or Central Michigan, they didn't deserve a chance. I'm just being honest, man. Eastern Michigan, they'll be fine. Central Michigan is beating Northern. Oh, a big game is happening right now. Central Michigan is beating Northern Illinois 21-6. Winner keeps their bowl game hopes alive. Northern Illinois, I guess they're like, okay, we're not going to a bowl game this year. But then Central Michigan has to play Buffalo. Central Michigan beats Buffalo. Central Michigan, Western Michigan will be a big game for bowls. Other than that, just watch all the MAC games. Pretty much they're on, ESPN Tuesdays and Wednesdays pretty much from now on. Just watch the MAC games. The MAC games, Tuesday, Wednesday, if you're free, best games to watch. Let's go on to the Mountain West. And we're going to check in weekly. Probably, maybe Sunday we'll check back in, but we'll see. Mountain West, Boise State's got to play Wyoming. Utah State, do they have a chance? Utah State has a chance. Others, Colorado State, do they have a chance? No. Okay, so Boise State. So in the Mountain West Mountain Division, Boise State's 5-0. Wyoming's 4-1. Utah State is 2-2. Colorado State's 2-2. Boise State has to play Wyoming and Utah State. Really? Boise State has to beat Wyoming. Boise State, Wyoming's going to be the big game for the Mountain Division. Because if Wyoming wins, they got tiebreaker. They'll play in the championship, Mountain West Championship. The Western Division, Fresno State beat San Jose State. They've got tiebreaker. Does UNLV have a shot? No. Does San Diego State have a shot? No. So, Fresno State has pretty much beaten everyone they need to, as long as they don't, poop. Ooh, no. Fresno State doesn't have it locked up. They play Wyoming last week of the regular season. Wyoming is 4-1 in the Mountain West Mountain Division. Wyoming can beat Boise State and still not make the Mountain West Championship. So the big game will be Wyoming. Wyoming has two big games in back-to-back weeks. They got to play Boise State and Fresno State. And then if they beat Boise State and Fresno State, they'll have to beat San Jose State. So that'll be a complete and total Mountain West, cleaning up. But so San Jose State, they got to play. They're them playing. Oh no, UNLV, and they don't have the tiebreakers though. UNLV and San Diego State don't have any tiebreakers. So, it's too soon to tell, but no really Mountain West games to watch this week from a conference perspective. We gotta wait for Boise State, Wyoming. We gotta wait for Wyoming and Fresno State. Other than that, people just gotta come out and play football. Utah State, they're 3-5 right now. They have 4 more games. And you look, they're playing. See, they can beat New Mexico and Hawaii, but they got to play San Jose State and Boise State last 2 weeks of the regular season. They've got to win one of those games if they want to go to a bowl game, which will be pretty interesting. Colorado State, they got to win out, but they play San Jose State. They got no shot. New Mexico, they've got to win out. They play Utah State. That'll be a decent game. So their teams, every 2-6 team, they've got to win out. That's the point blank period of it. They've got to win out. But Colorado State, they play San Jose State. It's not looking good for them, and it's an away game. New Mexico, they play Utah State. It's an away game. It's not looking good for them. Fresno State, they'll be fine. UNLV and San Diego State. UNLV is gonna be fine. San Diego State, okay. San Diego State, they've got to beat UNLV this weekend. San Diego State's 4-4. They got to win. They have 4 games left. They have to win 2 more to make a bowl game. They play 4-4 UNLV, 5-2 San Jose State, 2-6 New Mexico, and 5-3 Air Force. If we're saying they'll beat New Mexico, they've got to win one of their other 3. you know, the rest of them being home games, that's pretty good. So they got to take it week by week, but hopefully they can beat UNLV at home Saturday at 6. Otherwise, nothing else from the Mountain West going on the Pac 12. And we all pretty much know the Pac 12 story, man. Oh, Utah's handling business. I'm simming. John. Oh, I need to, you know what I need to do? I need to come like this. And then go to fourth win for Utah. That's how I do it. Fourth win, Utah. And then sim game. Trailblazers and Warriors. Utah, like, we can look at the Pac 12 and know it's too soon to tell for a lot of this. Oregon's got to play Utah. USC and UCLA, one of those teams will be knocked out of contention. It's probably, if Oregon beats Utah, then the winner of USC UCLA is going to play Oregon. UCLA already lost to Oregon, so that'll be interesting. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Oregon's got to play Utah. USC's got to play UCLA. That'll decide the Pac 12. If we look at playoff implications, though, Arizona State, they're 3-5. They got to win 3 of their next 4. They've got UCLA this weekend at home. They've got Washington State and Arizona, which are winnable games. Then they got Oregon State at home, so they got to either beat UCLA or Oregon State. So this weekend will be a good time to watch Arizona State UCLA, 8:30 p.m. on FS1. That'll be a good game. Arizona State, if they want to make a bowl game, hey, they gotta beat UCLA or Oregon State. But it's better to try to win now than have to win out for the rest of the year. That's kind of tough. We come to Washington State. Washington State's fine. They got Stanford, Arizona State, and Arizona. I know I was just talking highly of Arizona State, but Washington State, they're fine. They don't gotta really worry. They're 4-4. Cal is 3-5. They're done for. They can beat USC, but then Cal has to. They're 3-5. They have to win 3 of their next 4, and they play USC, Oregon State. He did not shoot that. Stanford and UCLA. UCLA is going to be a tough game, but they can do it. USC is going to be tough, but they can do it. Oregon State, I don't know too much about them. Stanford, they can beat. So, Cal, they've got a shot, but it's not looking like a really great shot. But they've got a shot nonetheless. Nonetheless, they've got a shot. Oh, Dame not even on the court. So it's too soon to tell for a lot of these teams. Like, because I don't have a good read on the Pac 12, so I'll wait till it's like you've got to win every single game. So probably next week when I come and review the Pac 12, that's when we'll have a better image of what's left. Because I don't have a good read on only elite team I thought was Oregon, and none of these. Oregon has Colorado, they're out the playoff. Then they got Washington, Utah, Oregon State. All those teams are mean out the bowl games. I don't know why I keep saying playoff. That's a tough take, Andrew. But hey, let's proceed. SEC. We kind of already know SEC East. Georgia, Tennessee. They play this weekend. It's a big game. And then Alabama, Mississippi State, LSU. Or is it Ole Miss? It's Ole Miss. LSU beat Ole Miss. LSU beats Bama. Hey, if LSU beats Bama, then this pretty much determines. So, dang, same weekend. For the East and the West, it's pretty much determined. If LSU beats Bama, then LSU wins the West. Whoever wins between Georgia and Tennessee will win the East. Alabama still plays Mississippi, right? Yeah, Alabama still plays Mississippi. And then the West and the East will be decided, so we'll see. I don't think Alabama's going to beat LSU, if I'm honest with you. Alabama's pretty bad this year. Even though they're doing well, only one loss to the number one team in the nation by like a couple points. I don't think they're too good this year. They're not to my standard of Alabama. We got South Carolina. Who do they have any scrubs? They play Vanderbilt. They should win that one. They should have beat Missouri, but they didn't. Missouri is 4-4. They've got Kentucky. Missouri's at home. I think everybody at Mizzou knows. If we win this game, we can go to a bowl game. But Missouri also plays Arkansas and New Mexico State. So Missouri has to win 2 of their next 4. Really, 1 out of their last 3 SEC games to make a bowl game. So I like their chances. Florida, it's too, like, these teams aren't in desperation mode, but Florida, they got South Carolina and Vanderbilt. They'll be fine. Vanderbilt's 3-5. Vanderbilt's pretty bad. They know they're not going to a bowl game. Auburn. They got Mississippi. They got Western Kentucky. That's a free dub. Alabama, they're probably not getting that one. So Auburn. Oh, sheesh. Yeah, Auburn's got to win their next 2. So Auburn, I'd watch the Auburn-Mississippi State game. I would watch that one. This weekend at 6:30 on ESPN2. That'll be a good game. And then Texas A&M. They got Massachusetts. They play LSU. They're probably not getting that one. So Texas A&M Auburn could be a good one. If Auburn beats Mississippi State, then Texas A&M versus Auburn really determines which of these 2 teams goes to a bowl game. That'll be a good one. Otherwise, we all know SEC. Everybody else covers SEC. We don't got to touch it here. We already know. Alabama, LSU this weekend, Georgia, Tennessee. Winner of Georgia, Tennessee pretty much goes as the SEC East champion. If LSU wins, they're the SEC West champion. Alabama wins, they still got to play Ole Miss. Does not really matter to me. Does not really matter to me too much. Now, the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt. Is this the last one? Yeah, it is. The Sun Belt. Well, that's a good take. The Sun Belt. I used to think James Madison was going to win it out, but as soon as I stopped betting against him, they started losing. Yeah, I would have pegged them to lose every game until, it is what it is. Let me just drop it right there. Coastal Carolina. So the Sun Belt, it's too soon to call. Because Coastal Carolina is 4-1. Now, pretty much every other team in the Sun Belt East has 2 losses in the conference. So if Coastal Carolina loses a game, Coastal Carolina's up 1 on all these teams. Coastal Carolina loses a game, it's pretty much anyone's race in the Sun Belt East. So I'm not going to really touch on the Sun Belt East too much, because as I said, it's pretty much anyone's race. We go to Sun Belt West. Troy beat South Alabama and Southern Miss. So Troy has tiebreaker on South Alabama and Southern Miss. South Alabama and Southern Miss are going to play each other. One of those teams will be knocked out of contention with 2 losses and not have the tiebreaker with Troy. It's tough for Troy because Troy... So let me go back. Troy, South Alabama, and Southern Miss are both 1-loss teams in the Sun Belt West. But Troy beat South Alabama and Southern Miss. And South Alabama and Southern Miss have not played each other. One of those teams is going to drop to 2 losses. Troy has to play Louisiana, UL Monroe, Arkansas State. All bottom teams in the Sun Belt West. So Troy could easily handle business and just go on to win the division with 1 loss. I think they lost to Marshall. They lost to Appalachian State, which could end up being a rematch, which would be pretty dope, but probably not going to be a rematch, but could be a rematch. Would be pretty dope. See, as long as Troy doesn't, poop the bed, they'll be fine. Otherwise, South Alabama or Southern Miss, if Troy drops a game, that could be the game that determines who goes to the Sun Belt Championship for the West. Let's look at games to win. We look at Georgia State; they're 3-5. It's too tough to tell for the Sun Belt. Georgia State has to play James Madison, Marshall, Southern Miss. They're good teams. Georgia State has to win 3 of their next 4. Southern Miss won't be an easy one. They'll get UL Monroe at home. That should be a dub. But then they've got to go to Southern Miss, James Madison, and Marshall. I don't know. Georgia State, those will be. But it's too soon until, I would say, watch Georgia State, Southern Miss. But that game probably won't carry the urgency for Georgia State that you think, so probably I wouldn't say watch that one. Old Dominion, and they're 3-5. They've got to play Marshall, James Madison, App State, South Alabama, all good teams. We'll just have to see when they drop. I'm not going to really focus on 3-5 teams for the Sun Belt or 4-4 teams because they've got room for error. That's the best way to put it. They got room for error. But we look at UL Monroe, 2-6. They've got to win out. They've got Texas State, but Texas State at home. I'm on Texas State. I want to be on UL Monroe. They've got Texas State at home. Then they go to Georgia State. Then they play Troy and Southern Miss. They've got to win out. So UL Monroe, Texas State at home at 4 p.m. on ESPN3 will be the game to watch. But otherwise, y'all, boy, I appreciate y'all rocking out, man. We'll try to have these weekly, but as you can see, there's a lot of good games to watch all around the college football. I don't really make predictions or anything. It's too soon to tell. Western Michigan is coming back a little bit on Bowling Green. It's 13-6 at the end of the third. But Bowling Green is on the Western Michigan 9-yard line. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to sim this one to end. Can I simcast? Okay. I should have simcast the last one. Oh. And then we're gonna peace out of here, man. That's what I should have did to the. Oh man. By 1 point. It's tough. Alright, man. Y'all boys be easy. Godspeed.